The earth trembled. Dust choked the air. The deafening roar of battle echoed through the valley. Israel, led by the courageous Barak, clashed with the might of the Canaanite army. Their chariots, fearsome weapons of war, thundered across the battlefield.
The Israelites, though outnumbered, fought with the fury of the righteous.
Sisera, the Canaanite general, commanded his forces with ruthless efficiency. He was a feared warrior, known for his cruelty and cunning. Deborah, their prophetess and judge, had promised them victory. She had ignited a fire in their hearts, a burning desire for freedom. The fate of Israel hung in the balance, suspended between the clash of swords and the cries of the fallen.
The tide of battle began to turn.
The Canaanite lines wavered, then broke. Panic surged through their ranks as the Israelites pressed their advantage. Sisera, watching his army crumble, knew that all was lost. He had never tasted defeat, had never known fear. But on that day, as the shadow of defeat loomed large, he turned and fled. The setting sun cast long shadows across the desolate landscape. Sisera, his armor weighing him down, ran until his lungs burned and his legs screamed for mercy. His heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of fear against his ribs. He glanced over his shoulder, expecting to see the avenging swords of the Israelites. He stumbled into a grove of trees, seeking refuge in their meager shade.
He had to escape, had to find sanctuary.
His eyes darted around, searching for any sign of pursuit. In the distance, he saw a cluster of tents, their colorful fabrics fluttering in the wind. Hope flickered in his chest. Perhaps there he could find shelter, a moment to catch his breath and plan his next move.
He approached cautiously, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword.
A woman emerged from the largest tent. She was striking in her bearing, her eyes both kind and intelligent. This was Jael, wife of Heber the Kenite, a tribe known for its neutrality in the conflicts that plagued the land. Sisera saw in her a beacon of hope, a chance for survival. His steps quickened, his desperation mounting with each passing moment.
"Water," he croaked, his voice hoarse from thirst and exhaustion. "Please, I beg you, a drink."
Jael regarded him with a mixture of curiosity and concern. She saw the fear in his eyes, the desperation etched on his face. She did not recognize him, this weary traveler, but hospitality was a sacred duty, one she would not shirk.
"Come," she said, her voice soft and reassuring. "Come into my tent. You are safe here."
She led him inside, offering him a cool drink of goat's milk.
Sisera drank greedily, the refreshing liquid soothing his parched throat. He felt a surge of gratitude for this woman, this stranger who had offered him kindness in his hour of need. He sank down onto the soft cushions, his eyelids heavy with exhaustion.
"Rest," Jael said. "I will keep watch and warn you if anyone approaches."
Sisera nodded gratefully, his body surrendering to its weariness. He closed his eyes, lulled into a false sense of security by the quiet murmur of Jael's voice and the gentle warmth of the tent. He did not see the glint of steel in her eyes, the steely resolve that had taken root in her heart.
Jael watched as Sisera's chest rose and fell with the rhythm of sleep. His sword lay beside him, a silent testament to the violence he had wrought. She knew who he was, this man who had brought so much suffering to her people. She had heard tales of his brutality, his utter disregard for human life. And yet, here he was, vulnerable, trusting at her mercy. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over her, pity, revulsion, fear, and a fierce determination. She knew what she had to do. It was a terrible thing she contemplated, but the fate of her people rested on her shoulders. She would be their instrument of deliverance, their shield against tyranny. She rose silently and moved towards the tent's entrance, where the tools of her husband's trade lay scattered, ropes, mallets, and heavy wooden tent pegs. Her fingers closed around a sturdy wooden peg, its end honed to a sharp point. She picked up a heavy mallet, its weight oddly comforting in her hand. Her heart pounded in her chest, a drumbeat against the silence of the tent. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the task ahead. There was no turning back.
Jael stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the mallet grounding her as the gravity of her decision sank in. The tent was eerily quiet, save for the soft rustling of the wind outside, a stark contrast to the chaos that had raged in the battlefield. She glanced at Sisera, his face peaceful in slumber, unaware of the storm about to break. Every breath she took seemed to echo in the stillness, amplifying the intensity of the moment. Her mind raced, replaying the stories of her people's suffering, the faces of those who had fallen, and the hope of a future unmarred by tyranny. She knew that this act, this moment, was a fulcrum upon which the fate of her people balanced. The mallet felt heavier with each passing second, the tent peg a symbol of both destruction and salvation. She raised the mallet, her eyes never leaving Sisera's face, her resolve hardening with each heartbeat. And then, with a final resolute breath, she brought the mallet down. The silence shattered, giving way to the inevitable storm. Jael's brave act was a turning point. Her courage led to the fall of Sisera, bringing peace to the land. The people celebrated her as a deliverer, and her name was remembered for generations.
Jael, you helped your people stand with the strength of heaven's clear. In dark times you made God near. Stories arise from her brave soul, generations take their role. In her shadow they find the way, facing trials not led astray. And stray. Jael, fierce heart divine, in your courage we find our line. With your fearless roar in unknown night, lights our path, keeps us in God's sight. Oh, Jael, fierce heart divine, in your courage we find our line. With your fearless roar in unknown night, lights our path, keeps us in God's sight. In the tale, fierce heart divine, in your courage we find our line. With your fearless roar in unknown night, lights our path, keeps us in God's sight. In the tent, a warrior did lie, siege broken, embraced final sigh. Gentle as a whisper, strong as a shield, to God's will she chose to yield. Echoes of iron faith in her hand. Jael, you helped your people stand with the strength of heaven's clear. In dark times you made God near. And still echoes of iron faith in her hand. Jael, you helped your people stand with the strength of heaven's clear.